What's going on, everyone? It's showtime. Let's go, baby. In today's video, we'll be going over my top 5 Ranger cards from Outsiders. I did cheat a little bit, but I believe it's justified. But before we get into it, I'd like to ask you to please like and subscribe. If that's something you would like to do, you do have the freedom of choice here. But it would really help me out and it'd be very much appreciated. Anyways, it's showtime, baby. Let's get it. Okay, folks, we're going to kick things off with the honorable mention. And that honorable mention is Death Touch. And the only reason this is an honorable mention is because this card's been spoiled for a while, so I don't want to spend too much time on it. And I didn't want to add it to the list because I'm going off of this weekend spoilers, pretty much for this video. So, Death Touch, really quickly, we're going to talk about the red one. It's a 1 cost for 6 that blocks for 2, and it says Death Touch can't be played from your hand, and when this hits a hero, create a Frailty, Inertia, or Blood Rot Pox token under their control. And just in case you forgot what the plague tokens do, we have Blood Rot Pox that at the beginning of your end phase, destroy a Blood Rot Pox and deal 2 damage to you unless you pay 3. Now remember, these are going under your opponent's control, so this is their end phase this is talking about. So at their end phase, they have to either choose to take 2 damage or get rid of a card. Inertia, same thing. At the beginning of end phase, destroy it and put all cards from your hand and arsenal onto the bottom of your deck. So it's kind of like a Seek and Destroy, just not as good, I guess, because everything is cycling back into the deck instead of getting dumped into the graveyard. And we also have, let's see here. And we have Frailty. So Frailty doesn't pop at the end of their turn. Well, it does, but its effect doesn't. It just lasts their turn. So it's your attack action cards played from arsenal and weapon attacks have -1, and then they destroy it at the end of their turn. But it's that effect is going to be through their entire next turn. So Kadashi's attack for 0. Crippling Crush's attack for 10. I don't know, just throwing that out there. But those are the plague tokens. Now, so Death Touch lets you choose from one of those 3 on hit to give to the opponent, but by itself, I mean, a 1 for 6 red arrow is really good for Ranger. I mean, you look at cards like Chilling Ice Vein, for example, for Lexi. It's the red one is a 1 for 5 that blocks for 3, so it blocks an additional but does 1 less damage. So these are effectively the same rate. The thing is, Chilling Ice Vein, you're pretty much just doing that essentially that Winter's Bite effect. When it's fused, they have to discard a card unless they pay 1. So it's like a blue Winter's Bite on a red card. But Death Touch lets you choose. I feel like the effect on Chilling Ice Vein is probably stronger than some of the plague tokens, but it's hard to say because we haven't seen a lot of stuff. The big brains haven't really messed with it enough or had the time to fully flesh it out. But the thing is, ice is disruptive and ice is very powerful. You can't really argue with that. So with the plague cards entering the format, it's tough to say if they're going to be more powerful than ice. I feel like probably not, but the thing is, it's still disruption. Disruption is very good in this game. So Death Touch could be really good just because of that, and you get to choose. Now we're going to go ahead and move on. And it's a good segue talking about Death Touch into this next one because these are some arrow cards, and I'll go ahead and say this is the first part of my cheating, I guess, because this is a cycle that I'm talking about. I'm talking about the arrow cards that give your opponent one of the plague tokens. We have Infecting Shot, Sedation Shot, and Withering Shot. They're each going to be, as long as you have the aim counter, so they're 1 for 5s that block for 3. As long as you have an aim counter, they're going to be 1 for 6s, so on par with Death Touch, which is very freaking good. And then on hit, you're disrupting your opponent, so that's even better. And not to mention, we're talking about Ranger here. Ranger have these buff effects, cards that'll pump up your arrow and give it an additional on hit effect. So now you're looking at cards that can come in for 9 fairly easily and just for 1 resource. So off of a 3-card hand or a 2-card hand in Arsenal and the new legendary chess piece for Ranger, you can throw that type of damage and deal some type and put some kind of disruption on your opponent. So that's why I have these cards at number 5. I think they can be pretty good because of the disruption. We just have to wait and see how powerful it's going to be. Coming in at number 4, we're cheating again, but this is the last time. Every other card on this list will be one single card. But number 4, we have the Lace cycle. Lace with Blood Rot, Lace with Frailty, and Lace with Inertia. These cards cost 0, they block for 2, and your next arrow attack this turn gains +3, and when this hits, create an Inertia token for the Inertia one, and then Frailty and Blood Rot for each respective card under your opponent's control. So I think these cards are going to be pretty good. I mean, I've already said Disruption's good in this game, and on-hits are good in this game, and these are just... These and my top 5 and my top 4, they do all of that. Moving on to number 3, we have Barbed Undertow. Barbed Undertow is a Majestic. It's a 1 cost for 5 that blocks for 3, and if Undertow has an aim counter on it, it gains when this hits a hero. Choose red, yellow, or blue until the start of your next turn. They can't pitch cards of the chosen color. This card seems pretty good to me. So there can be some situations you're up against an opponent and you name blue or something, and you just completely or almost completely shut their next turn down, or you significantly power them down. You choose yellow and wreck them. You choose red and wreck them, just depending on what your opponent's doing. So, and I know I keep mentioning ice, but I love how this card is flexible. It just seems like a really good effect and a very powerful card. And also, who is this guy here? Who is he? Friend of mine was talking about it and say, oh, maybe we'll get another ranger sometime in the future. Maybe it's a shadow ranger or something, but I don't know. Anyways, the art is cool, the effect's cool. I love the card. Moving on to number 2, we have Amplifying Arrow. Amplifying Arrow is a 0 for 2, blocks for 3. It's a Majestic, pitches for 2, and has an effect. This is an above rate card. Okay. The effect, while Amplifying Arrow is face up in any zone, it would gain, if it would gain attack, instead it gains that much +1. So this gets better for each pump effect that you throw in front of it. Say you have your high roll on your opponent, you cast 3. You're pumping this thing up by 12, so you're hitting for 14 for no resources. Because, you know, most of these, a lot, and the most played ranger actions that buff cost 0. You know, Seek and Destroy, Release Attention, other ones I'm not thinking of. They cost 0, they pump for 3, and this card's making them pump for 4, which is pretty absurd. And even just one is making this a 6 attack arrow for 3. We've been talking about Death Touch being 6, and then the new ones with the plague effects coming in for 6 without any other buffs. This one, of course, yeah, you buff it, but it's coming in for 6 for 0 when those cost 1. So for no resources at all, you can get a 6 power attack off this card. 2 cards, but 0 resources. I think this card's pretty good, and of course the ceiling is pretty high. As I said, if you can high roll and clock your opponent hard. And the cool thing is it pitches for 2, so if you don't have a buff to really get the effect off, you just pitch it to pay for something else and save it for later and finish the game with it. And the last card we're going to talk about, the ranger card that caught my eye the most is Widowmaker. I've been calling this thing Windowmaker because it hits pretty hard. This thing can punch holes in walls. So Widowmaker, it costs 1. It's a common for a 4 attack, 3 defense arrow with 2 effects. That's we're talking about 9 points of value, which is already above rate for ranger, or just above rate period. And then one of those effects. So let's go ahead and read them off. So defense reactions can't be played to Widowmaker's chain link. So let's read the text. Defense reactions can't be played to Widowmaker's chain link, and if Widowmaker is defended by fewer than 2 cards, it has +3. So I want to talk about that one for a second. Riptide is kind of a brute-esque looking hero, I guess you could say. You know, he's a little rough around the edges, I'd say, right? So giving an effect like that, like this, it kind of reminds me of Brood a little bit, you know, like pulping and barraging beatdown, however you want to say it. Sure, it doesn't say to non-equipment, so I guess technically this is worse in that effect. But the thing is, you're still dropping this thing for one resource, 7 damage. 7 damage for one resource, and we're talking about Herald. Rangers now have access to a card with the same rates, or on par, however you want to say it, with some of the illusionist attacks without Phantasm. The downside is it has to be played from Arsenal, but that's just Ranger. So yeah, 7 coming in. I will say, with how this is worded, I believe you can just kind of shut it down just by blocking with one piece of equipment and one card from hand, and then they're just going in for 4. But still, you know, again, we're talking about Rangers. We have pump effects that can still get 2 cards out of their hand, because there's going to be some type of on-hit effect with it if you pumped it. Very likely that you will, because this is Ranger. So we're talking about 1 card for 1 resource that can get 2 to 3 cards from your opponent and an equipment, or at the lowest level, maybe 1 card and 1 piece of equipment. Say you don't have the buff. The card's good. In my opinion, this card's good. It's going to go in every Ranger deck that I build, and at least initially while I'm testing this stuff out. I mean, come on, defense reactions can't be played. It comes in for 7 for 1. It presents your opponent with a pretty tough decision, and of course, if you put an on-hit effect on this that can give your opponent some type of plague, it's big game at that point. You know, so we're talking about with an effect like that, we're talking about 10 damage. That can drop down to 7 as long as they use 2 cards, but that's still 7. That's a very good break point, and we're talking about relevant on hits here. So that's why Widowmaker is number 1 on my top 5 for Ranger. Let me know what you think in the comments. I have to say, this is just my list. I'm not saying these are just the absolute best. Auto run them. This is my list of what I think are going to be the most impactful cards, or at least as far as my deck construction goes. But yeah, let me know what you think in the comments. Did I miss anything? What do you think? What's your favorite card? I want to know. Anyways, thanks for watching. The show's over. Peace.